All right, I'm back. Hi, everyone. So, today I thought I'd go live since I was going to be sitting here anyway, working on my nails. And since that's a process that takes a little while, I have time and I haven't gone live in a while. So, I thought I wanted to touch on the topic of submission as it did come up in some recent videos and I did get some backlash regarding the topic. So I thought I would expand on this subject further because it is something that I not only want to be clear about, I think it's important for people to really stop and consider what it means and why I guess I kind of have the opinions I do about it. I think the first thing, and this is again, this is going to be something that's kind of explained in a long way, like I do sometimes, but my thinking about this has taken years to formulate. So I want to show you examples from my own experiences about how I kind of came to this understanding. Now, I've talked openly on this channel before about working for a company a few years ago where one of my coworkers had reported my YouTube channel to some management in the company. Basically, they were concerned about my opinions. And rather than confront me directly, I mean, I still don't know who it was. I have a good idea, but I still don't know exactly for sure who it was. They were concerned about my views regarding the trans subject matter. So I had this random surprise meeting with my manager, my district manager, and someone from the company who I'd never met before, a man, and my district manager was a man. So my supervisor directly above me was female. And then I had two males sitting with me in this discussion. And they began to probe me, like, and mind you, I had no warning this was going to happen. I was not prepared at all for this. They just randomly grabbed me, and I felt honestly it was intimidating, to be honest, and I didn't really know how to respond. I think I held up well considering, but I still, think about this event because at that time it was kind of, I don't know, I started to think about things differently in some ways at that time. Not specifically this issue, but I did have some coworkers at the time who were trans identified, one of whom was, identifying as non binary despite being male. And I'm not saying this to be disrespectful. I actually liked this person quite a bit, honestly. Like, if it weren't for that, and even so, even after that, I, have kept up with this person because I like them so much. I just hope he comes out of the delusion that he's not a man or, some gender in between because that's, what have you. But anyway, yeah, I had this meetings kind of sprung on me. And because when I talked about these individuals or when I referred to them, I didn't use their preferred pronouns. I would just use their name. I think that was kind of upsetting people because it's not. The thing about this cult specifically is that everyone has to participate. If you're not practicing their beliefs and if you're not affirming them, that you agree that a female is a male or a male is a non-gender or, a female or what have you, if you're not willing to bear false witness and lie about how you perceive them, then you're the problem. So, and I didn't have any desire to, in this circumstance, be hurtful to these people because they were young. They were all younger than me, I'll say that. And they are individuals struggling with their reality and getting sucked into stupid things that young people get sucked into. I'm not exempt either. So, especially not at that time in my life, I was sucked into stupid things as well. Stupid things. So anyway, we had this conversation, and in it, because I would not refer, and I was not going to refer to somebody as a opposite sex pronoun or a multiple person pronoun, it was decided that in order for there to be no discrimination happening in the workplace, that I would have to not use pronouns for anyone. Now that was difficult, as you can imagine, but I was like, you know what? I'm fine. I'll do that. I was like, you know what? I guess that's fair. I will cease to use pronouns when referring to individuals and only use names if it means that, I'm not discriminating against anyone. Which, in retrospect, the whole thing is ridiculous, and I hope it blows over soon, honestly, because I'm tired of it, but it is what it is. So anyway, I agreed to that. I understood, the position of the company I worked for and why they were, excuse me. I understood their position. I don't think they understood mine because, they were very dismissive of my concerns as I discussed, why I was uncomfortable with this, because it's treated as if, when you are the one who's not participating, that you're the problem. Okay, one moment. I'm going to. I just didn't want to yell at my cat while, on on mic. So yeah, I need to kind of wrap this story up. So I agreed, went about it, did that for a number of months, not using pronouns for folks with a KS. And I later was reading this book. It's called Magic in Theory and Practice by Aleister Crowley. And I do recommend that to anyone who wants to understand magic in any capacity as a phenomenon in the world. And there was a spell or rite that I found in the book where he suggests that people not use commonly used words like pronouns as a form of self-binding. And in the writing, he had this phrase that really impacted me. I thought it was one of the most brilliant phrases I've ever heard. And it said, "Thus bind thyself, and thou shalt be forever free." And there is so much truth to that. A lot of people see binding agreements, contracts, ties that bind Anything that restricts them in any way, they see it as being somehow oppressive. And we live in this culture of just, false freedom. A lot of people's concept of freedom is just being liberated, quote unquote, from all of that, not being tied down in any sort of capacity to any sort of right or responsibility. And in this writing, he made the case that there is another side to binding thyself, to restricting oneself. And it's actually to liberate yourself. It's the more control you have over yourself, the more controlled an individual is, the more liberated they actually are. It is not liberated at all to be a slave to your passions. Excuse me while I yell at my cat again. And hi, Sunfire. Glad you're here. Okay, so where was I? And I think that in some ways is the culture's hedonism. We have a lot of concepts of free love, open relationships, which can be an example of this. But there's nothing about these practices that is liberating. And in fact, the more entanglements you're in with people, romantically speaking, the more bound you are going to be. There is something very liberating about making commitments. There's something very freeing about tying yourself to something, about committing to something, whether it be a goal, whether it be, another person in a relationship, whether it be to a set of values, even. A lot of people have codes of ethics, moral codes that they live by. Many people who practice different religions or spiritual beliefs, they follow the teachings and guidings in those for a reason. And that is because it is liberating to submit oneself to something greater than you. It is liberating to restrict yourselves, because when we are restricted, we tend to do better. Another example of this would be, there's no liberation in excessiveness. It's binding. If you are a glutton, for example, if you eat and eat freely and don't think about anything you eat, and you just eat whatever you desire to, that's going to have consequences, and you will end up bound worse by your excessiveness than you ever would have been by restricting yourself, by limiting yourself, by putting some sort of limitation on yourself. However, there is this idea in the culture that, there isn't another side to things. And the truth about reality, and one of the basic Hermetic principles, is that everything is dual. There is two sides to every situation. So what appears to be liberating in one circumstance has, left unchecked, can become very restrictive to an individual. Like, again, the gluttony example. If you eat and eat and eat, never restricting yourself, you will eventually get so big that you cannot move. Is that liberating? Are you really liberated? If you are sexually wanton and not, careful about who you sleep with or how many people you sleep with, eventually you will end up restricted due to disease, due to, the passions of reality that come with that kind of behavior. Eventually, there is a limit to our freedom. Freedom isn't about being without those restrictions. Freedom comes from understanding and utilizing restriction and being joyful and giving ourselves over to a higher ideal. You know, when you have a goal in mind, you have to restrict other possibilities in order to manifest that thing. You know, you aren't going to be diverting all of your energies all over the place. You need to have them focused. And through that focus, you will grow and become, more liberated because you achieve more and then you have more options. I mean, this is just an example of this. So, I did get a comment in a recent video. I think it was one of my videos about how I'm no longer interested in feminism specifically. And this comment just said something to the effect of, you said you believe in women's liberation, but you believe women should submit to their husbands, and this is a contradiction. I guess on the face of it, that is a contradiction if you don't really think about why I said what I said. Okay? Because the reality is a lot of people, a lot of women specifically, and a lot of my content here on this channel is directed towards women. I am interested in having really deep conversations with other women about women's reality. Okay? The reason why I believe that is because I believe women need to have very high standards for the men that they marry. Okay, so if you are going to enter into a quote unquote marriage, bind yourself to a man in that way, meaning that you are restricted in who you get to, be available to. You are restricted in terms of, your life in so many ways. You don't do that with someone that you do not trust completely. You don't do that with someone who doesn't cherish you. You don't do that with someone who cannot provide for you and protect you fully, okay? If that's the case, if you're in that kind of situation where it's not that, then I don't see why you would marry that man, because he isn't someone you can submit to. And I don't think it's a one-way street either. I do think that in a marriage, it is a partnership, and I do think, you are required to consider and consult with one another. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as if I think a man should run roughshod over his wife and family in any sense, but I don't believe that men should be married if they are not of this quality. And unfortunately, in our culture today, women do not have these standards. And yes, these are very high standards, okay? So what I'm talking about is the ideal situation. If you're not in an ideal situation, I do not expect you to submit, okay? If you can't trust this man to have your back, to have it together, if he doesn't love and cherish you, etc., no, you should not submit to him. Why? Submission is natural when it is earned. Women have no problem. It is within our nature to submit, actually. I believe that very strongly. But it has to come through someone being, so trustworthy and having, honestly, more masculine energy than us. And a lot of men just don't. That's the reality that a lot of women are facing now in this world. They are, a lot of the times, more feminine in their approach to life than women are. And a lot of them, unfortunately, have the roles have been reversed in so many ways that they expect quite the opposite. A lot of men are looking at women to, provide for them, to protect them, to, um, to give them what they want. And the reality is, though, they're not going to submit to those women. And a lot of the times, men like this still expect women to submit to them, but that's not really possible because women cannot and will not. It's just not in our nature to. Women are not ever going to submit to anyone that we do not trust to have it together. Like, if he's not someone of vision, if he's not someone of integrity, if he's not someone of responsibility, if he's not someone who, you can trust to follow through with what he says, how do you submit to that? So, again, take what I said as an ideal and take it with a grain of salt. But I have seen this, women who are very dominant in other relationships, they find that one man who has their back completely, makes them feel cherished, they know has their best interest at heart, and all of a sudden they're a different woman. It's kind of like that Aretha Franklin song, or not Aretha Franklin, but she did it, the Carole King song, right? She wrote it, you make me feel like a natural woman. Well, what's going on in that? We have a woman who has never felt so comfortable before being in her feminine. She's finally found someone that makes it feel okay to be all those things. And I think that's something that a lot of women crave and very few get in this world. So just want to put that out there. Like, this is meant to be the ideal. And I honestly think, the more women raise their standards like this, the higher expectations they have, and the more they refuse to deal with men who cannot meet this expectation, the more things will change. But what I see is a lot of women just, not really having any ideas or standards, and, getting burned and being unhappy and not really even having the language to understand what's going on, because these things aren't really talked about in enough spaces. So that's kind of more about my perspective about that. There was another comment I got as well on a recent video. I know my last video was, well, not my last video, but a video I did recently about men paying on dates. I had a comment that just upset me, and not because we disagreed, but it upset me because I felt like the woman making the comment honestly is stuck in a trauma response. And, I don't think women who are, if you're still dealing with unresolved trauma from past relationships or past dating experiences or bad experiences with men, it might not be a good idea to be dating. But anyway, let me follow up with the comments here before I move into that. So let's see. Restrictiveness leads to freedom sounds like such a paradox, doesn't it? I mean, all paradoxes will eventually be resolved. But reality is paradoxical. I mean, we have to accept that and resolve them in our minds and understand that there are two sides to every coin. There is a head and tails, isn't there? There's a negative charge and a positive charge, but these are part of the same thing. But a lot of people don't ever really stop to see reality that way and understand that opposites are not opposites. They are the same thing. They really are. They really are. The more you look at this, the more you look at, let's take, for example, conflicting factions. There's oftentimes no differences between people on opposite ends of an issue. They're the same kind of people. Have you ever noticed that? Dogmatic people of any sort of persuasion are the same as their enemies. There's literally no difference. Oh, here we go. This is a good comment. Space Flower says, I struggled with alcohol in the past. I understand the freedom that comes with alcohol abstinence. Connecting with a higher power was very helpful. Exactly. So yeah, let's talk about that. Normalization of substance abuse is really common in this culture. And it's considered to be a freedom that we have to enjoy alcohol and, in some states, cannabis. And now they're, having decriminalization of psilocybin. And I've seen advertisements for therapeutic ketamine now. Like, no, thank you. I saw Party Monster. I'm good. Not doing that. But you know what I mean? Like, and this is seen as society becoming more free by letting the public have unrestricted access. I mean, not unrestricted completely. There are some restrictions in place, but are we going to be more free the higher we are, the more doped up we are? Is that going to lead to a freer society, or are we going to be more bound? Are we going to create more addicts? Not that I don't think psilocybin is really addictive, but I mean, some people trip a lot. Okay, like you have a substance doesn't have to be technically addictive for a person with an addictive personality to get consumed by it. You know what I mean? So I think these are really, it's really important to understand that freedom from is just as important as freedom to. In fact, it's one of the greater freedoms, Okay, so let's see. But yeah, thank you for sharing about your own experiences with alcohol addiction. I mean, yeah, people drink all over the place and it's freely available, but so many people are in bondage to their alcohol addiction. So many people can't get through the day without drinking. And that takes a toll on a person physically, spiritually, mentally. There's a cost to unrestricted freedom. And that doesn't mean that I feel like these substances, should be completely restricted, but I do think that a person with sense will understand that not engaging in certain behaviors or taking certain things into themselves is very liberating, is very freeing, is going to lead to more freedom than, taking them. I mean, alcoholics are not free, are they? They're slaves. There's no freedom in that. They're in total bondage. Okay, so let me pull up, I was going to pull up this comment I got. So give me a moment here. Go to my studio to find this. And please, if you're watching on catch up or even right now, do not go find this. I don't want people being, harassed, for leaving a comment on my channel. Okay, let's see. Where is it? Okay, yeah, here we go. So, y'all ready for this? I understand your points. For me, this is on my video about men paying on dates. Remind you, okay? So, actually, hold on. So, in that video, that video got some interesting feedback. I don't think people realized I was being kind of cheeky when I suggested that women go up to a random man if a guy, doesn't want to pay for them on a date. I mean, if you're under the age of 30 and you look good, girl, go do it. Okay? Seriously, do it. Because you might get a date out of that guy. All right, so let me read this. So this is from a woman. I always insist on paying my own way on a date. I feel that once a man pays for your dinner, he can feel entitled to your body and sexual favors. Okay, so right there. When did pussy become that cheap? Did I miss the memo? But pussy costs more than a dinner, doesn't it, ladies? We know that, right? Is anybody confused about that? I don't know who, and I'm not, men are going to try to sleep with you regardless. And there are women out there who will go to bed with a man on a first date. So if a man tries that with you, it's not surprising. But I mean, if you do go and sleep with him on the first date, it's unlikely to go anywhere because yikes. But just because a man feels entitled doesn't make him entitled. So, I mean, that first right there, it's like, why would you devalue yourself by paying for your meal? A man is paying for your time and your company. Okay. It's not just the meal. All right. It's literally the least he can do to be in your presence. And that was my basic, meaning in that video. So I found this comment disturbing, so because a man might feel entitled to sleep with you, you're going to just, not have any expectation of him. I don't think that's right. I don't think that thinking is right. I think that's a trauma response, honestly. I think that's, some guy did something to you once. He said something nasty to you. He had an expectation of you, and now you're expecting all men to be that way, and it's not the case. To err on the side of caution and in the interest of my safety, I pay. Caution and safety. You're on a freaking date. You're out in public. What's he gonna do? I mean, really, what you're in public. I don't understand this caution and safety thing. Is he gonna hit you over the head and drag you back? I mean, he might, but you're in public. I think you meet in a public place with a guy you don't know. You have your meal in public or whatever activity you're doing in public. And then you part ways in public. So, I mean, I don't see. Yeah, I just don't. This to me sounded like a real trauma response, and it bothers me that women are out here, having no expectation of men, making them also emasculating him too. That's the other thing about it. He's supposed to pay for your time and company. Sex is extra, all right? Really. I mean, you want that on a first date, I mean, that's all you need to say if a guy starts with that. And he starts on the first date talking about sex, you start being unreasonable too and be like, oh, well, we could have sex, but, I have these bills that you can pay, maybe you could start by sending me, X amount of money, since we're being unreasonable here, because that's an unreasonable expectation. And I mean, really, if a guy is really nasty about it, I mean, you just don't ever see him again. But if you're in public, I don't see how this could really come up. It sounds like something bad happened once, and then it's never again will I let a man be a man and treat me like a woman. Also, if a man is uncomfortable with the idea of me paying my own way, This tells me that he is not the kind of modern, forward-thinking man that I choose to date. So, okay. That isn't forward thinking. That's backward thinking. Women are the prize, men are not. Okay? You are the valuable one. You are the great resource. Okay? You are the one. Why would a man have any other perspective? If a man thinks, I don't understand this thinking at all. Like, it really is getting to me, and it's put under the guise of like feminism. Can somebody make it make sense to me? Because this is not helping women in any sense. We do not earn on average the same amount of men as men do. Our lives are a lot harder. It's harder for us to do. They have more options. A man without an education can make a lot more money than a woman without one. All right. Like, let's be real here. Come on. Like, I don't understand it. I once ended a friendship flirtation with a man because he told me point blank that he wouldn't take me on a date because he didn't think I'd put out and that he'd be wasting his hard-earned money. Yeah. Well, bye, dude. Yeah, that's again. So she had this negative experience with a man who didn't even want to take her out on a date. Like, why should all men be, though, not allowed to treat you well because one man treated you badly? And then she said, I do agree that it's ridiculous that women put so much more effort into their appearance than men. I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it's necessary. But as I work as an entertainment industry writer, the men I date do go to gyms and hair salons, wear nice suits, and sometimes even wear man makeup, natural looking creams and bases on their skin. Most of the younger men that I do know wear the creams and colognes, buy the workout equipment, get spiffy haircuts, because women these days make their own money and can afford to have higher standards. And yet sometimes I do pay for dinner because I like doing so. Like, I can't relate to this woman. So let's get this real. I don't care, first off, high standards. It's not, a man taking care of his appearance is a nice thing, but most women are going to be put off by that. I'm the pretty one, not him. Right? Am I right? Am I right there? Like, it's a little bit sus. It's a little bit, is he, I don't, and that's fine if he is, but like, and some women are attracted to feminine men. Okay. And, they're masculine and they don't have any problem wearing themselves out, trying to, live and do in a man's world. But I think most women, don't want that. I think most women end up living that life for a while and realize how empty it makes them feel. They feel worn out. They feel tired. And they, don't really want a man that's feminine, that's, seeing himself this way. So I just, reading this, I was just kind of like, okay, so a man treated you badly. So you let go of having any standards for men. Or the standards that you do have are that they should be pretty. That's not a standard. Standards are, is he a man of character? Is he a provider? Does he cherish and protect you? What are his intentions for you? Is he responsible? Those are the traits that matter. Like, why are men? I understand men being visual and like wanting something that looks good, but women are different than men. I think most women want something that is good versus looks good, you know? And us earning our own money, I mean, what is that? Of course we earn our own money. But just because we earn our own money doesn't mean that, we should spend it on men. Hell no. Hell no. Why would you, as a woman earning your own money, spend that money on anything but yourself? We should be earning our own money, yes, and spending theirs. To me, it's really bizarre, this kind of thinking. It's like seen as progressive that women should give more and get less, because that's what it comes down to. You are giving more than you're getting out of the circumstance. And what is that going to lead to? It's going to lead to resentment. It's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to fatigue and tiredness and, grumpiness and nagging, and it's going to lead to a loss of femininity. Because that's, again, if you're a woman engaging with a man and you take on that masculinity, you are going to wear yourself out because it's not natural to you. And you see this with women who are in these relationships that are, quote unquote, 50-50, or the woman pays her own way. These men suck them dry. They're getting sucked dry. They're getting nothing out of it. And for what? So they can say they have a man? What is that? Isn't it better to be alone until somebody who is someone of integrity, who actually, cherishes you, cares for you, and isn't afraid to open his wallet to spend, to buy you food? Food. This is like, to me, it's like the standards have just gone out the window, If he cannot, if it's a hassle to him, if it hurts him in some way to buy you food, am I right? Like, then he's not in a position to be dating. He needs to go back and work on himself and work on his expectations, for one, work on his money making, because a man should not be trying to get into women's pants and like lower their standards and make them expect less. And that's not, and I think that's a lot of what's going on here. It's like in this culture, we've just kind of lost a lot of the understanding of masculinity, femininity, men's roles, women's roles, and why they exist. And this is a big part of why I'm like, I don't resonate with this quote unquote modern feminism, because it has nothing to do with what is going to make women happy. It has nothing to do with what's best for women even. It is not best for us to be in these situations where we give more than we get. There's this old Irish proverb, and it states, "Do not marry the one you love, marry the one that loves you." And I think for women, that needs to be the case. A lot of women are out here chasing after who they love, never ever questioning, like, does this individual love me? But you're the woman. You are the one that is weaker physically. You are the one that takes on more risk in life, especially and again, we're talking about heterosexual dynamics here between men and women. What is the product of heterosexual union? Babies. What cost does that come at to the woman? It's a great cost. It can cost a woman her life to bring a child into this world. And, this is part of why women are so precious. Okay? I mean, this is We are the vessel that brings souls into this reality. We are the greatest resource on the planet. Reality, the human civilization does not exist without us. This is why men were sent, drafted into war through the centuries and not women. I mean, obviously, there have been cultures where there were warrior women or women that did do war, but most of them, no. And why is that? It's because we are more valuable intrinsically. It's because society has been constructed this way because we are the ultimate resource and source of everything. So why is it that we're in this situation now where so many women have forgotten that? Like they've forgotten the actual value of themselves, their bodies, their time. And that's the other thing about this as well, women chasing after pretty young boys. Men are fertile much longer than women are. We have a much shorter window for that. So, in that circumstance, there's no reason why a young man who is self-obsessed and, trying to make himself as pretty as a girl out here should be chasing women instead of developing himself. That's the other thing about it. Like, men have more time than women do. So your time is valuable. Just that hour and a half of your time on a date is so much more valuable than his, because you have less time in terms of like the breeding world. And most men, once women hit a certain age, once we're not, fertile anymore, a lot of the interest dries up because most men are, even if they're unaware of it, looking for someone fertile to bear their young. I mean, I don't know what to say here. This is reality. So like, it's upsetting to me to see women who are still menstruating still have the possibility of getting impregnated by a man, and risking all of that, up to and including death through childbirth, mind you. I know it's rarer in the USA now than it ever has been, but it still happens. So why do we not have this sense of how valuable what we have and what we are actually is? And to me, that's really what this conversation is about. We are very valuable. We are the ultimate resource. We are far more necessary to the continuation of the species, because one man can knock up a load of women, but only, sometimes we have situations of twins and triplets, and then of course, we had like freak situations of like the octomom out there, but that is rare. And I'm not calling her a freak, although but I'm saying that's a freak circumstance. But most of the time, you can only bring one or two people into the world at a time. So who is more valuable? Who is the actual prize? And it's a real problem if women are out here treating men like they're the prize, like their time is more valuable than it is. Our time is more valuable. All right, we got a new comment here from Big Bad Mama with a winky face. Give me a sec, I'll pull it up here. Women should pay when they go on dates because good men are rare. No, they should not. Hell no. I don't care. What the hell does that mean? If women stopped opening their legs for men who weren't, worth the damn thing, maybe more men would shape up. Maybe men would have a reason to raise their standards. You know what I mean? But I think, a lot of women are out here expecting very little, or there's women out here that have this mentality that it's better to have a man than not, even if he's not, functioning in the way a man should. Like with this example of, it was mentioned, women are earning our own money. Yes, I earn my own money. All of my friends earn their own money. Yes, women earn our own money. So if we earn our own money, if we can pay for our lifestyle, why on earth would we, from that vantage point, choose to get into a situation with someone unless they improved our life in some way? Doesn't make any sense. If we can pay for ourselves, if we can, provide ourselves with food, shelter, clothing, some of our heart's desires, trips, luxuries, why on earth would a woman settle for a man who isn't going to make her life better? But a lot of women do have this mentality that like it's better to just have someone regardless of, the actual quality of what the interaction should be. It's always better for women to be with someone that loves them, that cherishes them, that would do anything for them. If that's not the situation, keep it going. And I think that needs to be the mentality that women need to adopt and cultivate in themselves. Because if they don't have that, they end up in these situations where they just get sucked dry. They have all the youth, beauty, and vitality sucked out of them. And then, the guy, he's built up by the situation, and then he can take off, once she's dried out and desiccated by him, and go on to the next and do the same thing again. It's not healthy. Women need to understand that it's better to be alone than to be with someone that isn't of quality, to be with someone that isn't of integrity, to be with someone that you don't feel comfortable submitting to. Because women in those type of situations, those relationships, what are the quality of those relationships? It's kind of embarrassing to watch a lot of the times, or like when I'll talk with women who are in these type of circumstances and relationships, it is literally, I cringe when I hear about like what they're dealing with, what they put up with. It should not be like that. Why? Why deal with any of that? You don't have to. In this current era, we don't have to put up with that crap. So why do so many women do? They get into these relationships and they're the man's mother. They're actually, they take on this role of mothering him. And a lot of men out here are looking for that. Okay, like don't get it twisted. Like it's a real phenomenon. Like you see it all the time. You see it all the time. And women don't want that. Most women don't want to be in that situation when they're with a man who makes them feel like you're so much older than them that you have to tell them what to do. Like the women I know in these type of relationships are so deeply unhappy. And they're so deeply like foul as well to these men. Like the kind of fights they have, like it's nasty. Like why put yourself in that situation when you are the prize? You are the woman. You are the one. You're the woman. Like, that's all. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. If a man thinks he's the prize, and a lot of them do, like, trust me, I've been out here, I've met them. They got nothing going for them. They can't even buy you a full meal, but they think they're the prize and that you should just be so excited to be in their company. No, sir. No. I'm embarrassed for you because you were not raised right. You're not even finished being raised, clearly, and I'm not the one. Because the only people I'm going to be a mommy to are that cat. You know what I mean? Like, this comment is interesting. Aren't you turning it into a competition between men and women when it should just be fun and enrich both lives? Honey, no, it's not a competition. It's the game. I mean, it's, like, it's how it is. It's not about competition. There's, in every relationship, there's a chaser and one who's being chased. Okay? In every relationship, there's the prize and the chaser. There's the one that, goes after the prize and not. So, I mean, if that dynamic isn't there, the romance dries up pretty quickly, for one. And the other thing is, too, women's presence enriches men's lives. Okay? Like, I don't know many women. This is the thing. And I'm not saying this to be insulting, but, like, women enrich by their presence a lot more than men do. Most men are very draining to deal with to most women. Okay? It takes from us. So that taking, in terms of interacting with a man, has to be compensated for in some way. It's just the natural order, okay? I don't see this as a competition, or I'm like, I'm not pitting the sexes against one another. I'm stating there is a natural order to things, and things work best. Again, we're talking about ideal here. What is the ideal? What are people's standards? And conversely, men need to have standards for the women they date as well. Most men are not going to be comfortable providing for a woman who's irresponsible, who is vulgar, who doesn't respect herself or others. You know what I mean? Like, there's, a woman who doesn't, have proper hygiene, that kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, men will sleep with those kind of women, but, very few will, like, actually want to be in a relationship with one that is serious. So, I mean, there are different standards that people need to have regardless of what sex they are, what sex they're attracted to, but I do believe that relationships work best when, women, specifically, the feminine is the prize. And you know what? Let me pull this up here. See if I have it in front of me. I do have a deck here in front of me. I'm going to pull up the Lover's card in the tarot to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Because this is ancient wisdom I'm talking here. This is within our DNA. And when we understand it, this is about, liberation from the worldly and moving on to spiritual development, cultivating our own divinity. So, excuse me, I'm looking for the card. Just give me a second. Okay, yeah, we'll pull that one out too. Come on. It's buried in here, y'all. But I will find it. All right. All right, that's not the one. Maybe I can find a photo of it to share here. Yeah, because this one doesn't really demonstrate it very well. but I want to get a copy of the Rider-Waite image because what I have in front of me is not the Rider-Waite. Okay. Okay. So let me see if I can share it here on my screen. I'm still learning how to use StreamYard, so give me a sec. Okay, I'll share screen. All right, you all see this here? So what's going on in this image? We have a representation of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And the feminine has her eyes set on the higher things. She has her eyes set on this angel here. And the masculine figure, the male, has his eyes set on her. This is shown as the ideal representation of a love interaction. It's when the masculine is focused on the feminine and the feminine is focused on the spiritual. So let me get out of here. Stop presenting for a moment. That's basically how I view it. You know, things work best. This is the ideal. When this is in play, relationships work better. Okay? When the man loves the woman more than the woman loves the man, when he has his eyes set on her and she has her eyes set on greater things, meaning, you know, bringing about a reality, because that's what women do. Women, we nest, we create worlds. You know, we are creative, and that is what we provide and bring. And it's that vision, it's our connection to the divine in that way that manifests the Garden of Eden that men, you know, have access to by being in relationship with a woman. So this card specifically demonstrates that the masculine is fixated on the feminine is fixated on a higher ideal. And that is where we have an ideal relationship. You know, he is supposed to feel more strongly about her because she is his connection to that. He accesses that through her. Okay, but he needs to cherish her. I mean, you have to think about this as well. The relationships where women love men more than men love women always go badly. But, you know, those relationships where the man is fixated on the woman, those ones tend to last. They tend to create better circumstances. They tend to be better environments for children to be in. You know, those relationships bring about a better reality for all of us. So let me pull up something else here. So I wanted to juxtapose this with the Devil card. So let's see what Wikipedia pulls up. Yeah, here we go. So the Devil. What's going on in this image? So they are in bondage to one another. Their vines are bearing very little fruit. And as you see, they're kind of on the same level. You know, he's not looking at her with the same reverence. And, you know, they have these horns. There's a whole lot that I could break down in here, but just like comparatively In the Lovers card, we saw great vines growing out of them. We see the potential here, but it's chained. And that's because they're bound to each other. And she is not fixated on anything but him. And when that happens, it becomes this negative bondage situation. So I think there's a lot to this. And I think people should really consider kind of looking at that in terms of understanding where I'm coming from. And obviously this isn't the only reference point, but it's one that I'm pretty familiar with, having, done that kind of work for a long time. If you look at the tarot and you compare what's going on in the Lovers card versus what's going on in the Devil card, you kind of see the same kind of concept manifest. The feminine is to be fixated on greater things. She does not need to be chasing men. She's not chasing the masculine. The masculine is seeking her. And that is the ideal situation. So, I think that's kind of another way of putting what I'm talking about here. I'm not trying to pit the sexes against one another and have us in competition with one another. But what is going to cause the greatest enrichment of lives? It's that situation. That is the one that causes the vines to flourish. It creates the most abundance when that dynamic is in play, where they both enrich and are benefited from the situation. Okay, so that's what it's about. I'm talking about a situation, creating the kind of situation where humanity ultimately flourishes, because we are not flourishing, in this circumstance where there is a confusion about these roles. It actually brings a lot of people down into bondage. As I talked about at the beginning of the video, I don't know if you were here during that bit, but I really did kind of go on that tangent where I talked about the ways in which people bind themselves through their hedonism, through their overindulgence. They become slaves. And that's what's going on in the Devil card. Women do not need to be, women do better when we are not engaged in that. That brings humanity down when women are in bondage in those ways. And I think that's another problem with kind of the lax sexual morals that exist, in our culture today, for example, and this concept that women are somehow engaging in empowerment by behaving like men who don't have any sexual control. Because I'll put this out here, not every man is a hedonist. Not every man has a community penis. Not every man is out here being sexually irresponsible. But that is being pushed in our culture in many different facets, in music, in movies, in TV shows. I mean, how often are you seeing this now where women are going and sleeping with a man on the first date? She paid half and then she went home with him and let him just have all that access to her. What effect does that have? That's the kind of behavior that ultimately binds people. It brings them down. It doesn't uplift them. And so, I'm talking about a situation, and creating that kind of dynamic where ultimately we all flourish because we are, choosing the proper restrictions. We are knowing what to submit to. And it's a higher ideal. Ultimately, it's submitting ourselves to walking a path of, self-restriction, self-control that ultimately does liberate. If you bind yourself, you will be freed by that. If you restrict yourself, you will be freed. Those that have the ability to control their baseness, their urges, their mouth, ultimately win out over those who do not have self-control, self-restraint. But we do live in a culture which, pushes a lot of people very young into behaviors that really do bind them and bring them down into darkness and into despair. And I'm hoping, with these conversations that I have, for those who have ears to hear what I'm really talking about here, that you're going to walk away with it understanding that, my position and my positions here are really about liberation ultimately, but it's not the kind of liberation that just is, people doing whatever the hell they want to do. That's not liberation. That's bondage. The sexual liberation movement, for example, did not liberate anyone. It brought more people into bondage. More people became slaves to their baseness, their urges than ever before. And we do need to kind of take a step back and like look at the culture, what it's telling us, and ultimately think about like how do we free ourselves from all these things that are looking to tie us down, So anyway, move on. Allison D says, so happy you're not a feminist anymore, blue heart. I mean, I don't know. I'm glad you're happy. I had another comment that kind of bothered me. I wanted to read it too, because this person was like, I don't want to hear from these radical feminists. You know what I mean? Like, and I've heard from quite a few of them where like, well, that wasn't real radical feminism. What you were engaging in wasn't real radical feminism, because real radical feminism is my version of radical feminism. And it's just like, no. Don't tell me I did it wrong. You sound like a vegan, talking to an ex-vegan, like he did it wrong. You sound like, it's just, you just did it wrong. If you did it my way, well, I'm not you. And I don't agree. I don't agree with a lot of those suppositions, and I don't think we as humanity do well when we are viewing, the other. I don't think that the sexes should be at war with one another. I don't think we are. I think that's a culture war, honestly. And I think it's a culture war that's been sent to be destructive to the fabric of our society. So I don't feel, inclined to, become one of these less radical feminists, one of these radical feminists that, is confused. That's just how I see it, because honestly, the whole thing, the whole mindset for me, and from what I still see in most of these women, is one of victimhood. Okay. And it's yes, bad things happen to women and girls. Yes, male violence is a problem. But I don't think it does us any good to have this ideology where, the war is between female and male, or there's this, I don't think, this concept of patriarchy. I'm like, okay, if patriarchy doesn't exist, what role do men have? That to me, that patriarchy is, ultimately about it exists to provide a society for women. I guess the issue is I don't have an issue with patriarchy. Maybe that's it. It's like I don't really have an issue with fathers ruling in some way. I think that women, should have rights. I think we should, have access to things like, I don't know, our own bank accounts, the ability to, work in whatever field we choose, all of that. I'm all about all of that stuff. But when it comes down to it, like, do I see, I think patriarchy exists for a reason, and women can live outside of it to a certain extent, but ultimately it's not going to go away, because it's just, if you're going to be breeding new humans into reality, it kind of has to exist for it to continue to function in a certain way. So, that to me, it's like, I just don't agree with the precepts, the concepts, the perspective anymore. Allison D said, I used to be a rad femme. Well, I never was one of those. I'm into hypergamy now, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept, hypergamy. And, I understand what you're talking about, but I don't even think that, like, a lot of what I'm talking about even is hypergamy. Like, I do think, again, women, he needs to have what you have or more. That comes with being, quote unquote, like, as they talk about in the Bible, equally yoked, right? You need to be with a man that is at your level or higher for the relationship to work and function in any capacity. And a lot of women, excuse me, how elegant of me. A lot of women in our current reality are in a circumstance. Women are vastly more educated than a lot of men are. And I think that's a problem too. I think that this other thing about radical feminism, or just, that kind of gets to me. I'm like, things aren't good for men in this reality. That's a problem when you have such disparate rates of education between the sexes, where, like, women are far more educated than men. That's going to lead to a big problem, because, like, that for women, it decreases the number of viable options for mates for them, and for men as well. And it brings the culture down. It brings society down, because that's a natural situation, especially, like, if you are going to submit to a man, like I talked about with this video, submission, this concept of submission. You can't submit to someone who, isn't more than you. You're not going to submit to someone that isn't wiser than you, smarter than you, more capable than you, a better leader than you, are you? No, you can't do that. It's not going to happen. So, yeah, a lot of women are in this circumstance, in this reality, because, it's not good. This men also need to, young men need to be educated at higher levels. Men need to be getting, a lot of them aren't developed. I meet so many, especially younger men, like men younger than me. So I'm 37 years old. And I meet men that are like, about 10 years younger than me, or even my age too. A lot of them, I'm not even, be honest, I'm not the most accomplished person in the world, obviously. But, like, a lot of them, like, aren't even at my level, my level as a woman. And women can't really, women may tolerate that for a while, but, like, they're not ever going to be content or happy in that situation. So, like, I understand, like, this kind of hypergamy thing that a lot of women are in, because so many women have been in these situations and relationships with men that just, aren't even at their level, aren't even at your level. Now, what is that? If he's not even intellectually at your level, how can you even have that kind of ideal situation? You can't. Well, I'm glad you agree with what I'm saying. I don't, I'm like, yeah, I to be honest, I have no problem with hypergamy. I definitely learn a lot, and have learned a lot from that kind of community. especially like in terms of self-investment. That's the other thing. Like, and when I talked in that last video of mine, talking about the level of money that like women spend on themselves just to look good, you know, our nails, our hair, our makeup, our clothing, our perfume, you know, yeah, you know, I'm a material girl, but I'm not even like the worst out here. You know, there are so many women who spend, you know, they do a full face of makeup and all those products cost hundreds of dollars they've got on their face. Their hair products, again, more hundreds of dollars. Not to mention, you know, if they have hair extensions, how much does that cost? Thousands of dollars. Their nails, got $100 manicure. All right. And they're sitting across from a guy who won't buy them a plate of food. You know, and a lot of women have been conditioned to think that that is normal, to think that that's acceptable, or that she, despite the fact that she pays all this money on her, that she spent all this money on herself, and that she's got all of these things behind her, you know, like again, you know, we talked about the education thing and how much more educated women are than men. Like you've got all of these accolades behind you as a woman. You have all these achievements behind you as a woman. You spent all this money on yourself. You've invested all this time, energy in yourself, you know, not to mention like what it pays to look good. And the older we get, the more it costs. You know, this is just reality. Okay. And I think a lot of the times men are confused about this as well. They don't actually realize it. Actually, yeah, I wanted to talk about this too. A lot of them don't really know how much women spend, you know, on ourselves, but we do. And it's really, really a problem if women are spending that much money on themselves, investing that much in themselves, and having no expectation, you know, not valuing it. Like you are expensive by nature, even if you don't do all of that. Because I had women commenting on that video like, oh, I don't do all of that. Men don't care about that. I'm like, well, the kind of men who say they don't care about that really are just trying to get you for cheap. I'll be honest here. That's the case. You know, men have no problem telling you that they like you natural, that they like you fat. They have no problem making you fat. They have no problem making you unattractive. That they want you looking that way. A lot of men who don't have it together, who don't have the money to spend, want their woman to look that way because they don't want you going out and turning the heads of other men. They don't want you having more options. They don't want it to be that if, you know, for some reason they upset you, that you can just go out and find another one, right? They don't want that circumstance. So a lot of men will sit there and tell women, oh, I don't like that kind of thing. You know, I like natural women. I like natural beauty. Oh, you don't need to do that, honey. You don't need to do this, that, or the other. Meanwhile, you're out at dinner with them and they're turning their head at every single woman that walks by who spent however much money looking that good. Okay, so, you know, do not trust what they say. Trust what they do. If you see a man tell you he likes natural women, or he likes that you aren't done up, he likes that you aren't all fussy like that, but then you look on his phone and on his Instagram, he's following all those thoughts with their fake lashes and their nails and their long ass hair, you know, their silk presses, their wigs, you know, they're all of that. If you know, but he likes you natural. No, he likes having access to you. He doesn't like that, but don't get it twisted. He likes that. Most of them do. It's very rare you're going to come across one that's like legitimately doesn't like that. Now, depending on where he comes from, his class, his background, if he's more conservative, he may not want you to be that flashy. He may want shorter nails, but he's still going to want you to look, good. All right. And look the best that you possibly can with what you've got. All right. But, ultimately, the kind of men who say that kind of thing are just trying to get a woman cheap. And they want you to look that way because they don't want to have any competition. The femininity causes heads to turn. For many years, I was not practicing femininity. You can go back on this channel and see. I was adamantly against it. I was like, femininity oppresses women. But I tell you about when I started to reclaim the femininity, when I began to, kind of wake up from that spell I was under, because I honestly feel that I was under a dark spell with that mentality. I began to see the power that femininity actually has. When women are feminine, we take up space. We're taking up visual space. We're taking up mental space. We're taking up physical space. We are demanding that we are seen. And when we are seen, we are heard more. When we are seen, people are more apt to help us, to assist us, which is what we need because, again, we are the fair sex. We are daintier. We are weaker. It's just reality. It is what it is. The strongest woman is generally no match for an average man. And I'm not, this is not discrediting any woman, but this is biology. It's what it is. So we have to embrace that to a certain extent and use it. Have you been on a date with a man who would not buy you a plate of food? I can't remember a situation. I don't feel like I've ever been in that situation. Now, trust me, I've been out with some dusty mofos. Okay, no lie about that. You know what? Actually, I was in a recent situation with a guy who was pretty cheap. Like, he did buy me food a couple of times. But then he started to get economical about it, and that's what I dipped. I was like, oh no. Like, he asked me to go Dutch once. I was like, no. Like, you're out with me in public. He was younger. And at first I was kind of angry at him. So yeah, this did happen recently. But previous situations, no. I mean, it hasn't really been a problem. But I mean, and that guy asked me it before we went out as well. Like, we weren't at the restaurant eating, and then he sprung it on me. He was like, oh, do you want to go Dutch? And I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. So yeah, that guy was younger than me by several years, and he's just not. I mean, there wasn't anything really going there, so it wasn't any big loss to me. And I hope, from interacting with me, hopefully I had a positive impact in some way, because I'm hoping that he saw that he's not ready to be dating. I mean, I even said that to him, when I first met him, because he was talking about kind of his job situation and that kind of thing. He does have a generous spirit generally, but he can't afford to be dating. So, I just can't really, I'm like, can't be around you. There might be a man around that wants to spend money on me, or even a woman. This is the thing. I go out, last week I went out with my friend, one of my girlfriends. She bought me food. She didn't think twice. She didn't blink an eye. She just went up and paid. I was like, girl. And I've had other women do that for me. Women who have no intention of sleeping with me. Women have no expectation that I'm going to like, do something for them. Now, if we can do that as women, why can't a man do that? Yeah, it's not, to me, it's senseless, this kind of conversation. But, we still are having it because a lot of people don't get it. Girl, yes, I 100% agree. I feel like we cut ourselves off because femininity is one of our, it's women. All women are feminine. Some don't know how to access their femininity. Some's femininity has been stunted. But like all women, by virtue of being women, are feminine. And the more we develop ourselves, the more we kind of grow, learn about ourselves, become, the best version of ourselves that we can be, the more it flourishes. The more we invest, the more that aspect of ourselves comes to the forefront, and the more, we enrich the world. So I think like, I talked about this on my Instagram, and I had a feminist respond to me. She's like, do you understand why what you're saying is bad for butch and gender nonconforming women? Like, did it like chewed me out a little bit. And she like sent me this photo of herself, and I swear to God, she's not butch either. Like, no butch energy going on with that one. But even butch women are feminine. But don't get that twisted either. Butch women are feminine. That's part of their appeal, is their femininity. Thank you very much. Like, that's part of what makes them attractive, is the way their femininity manifests. So like, just because you're butch doesn't make you not feminine. But this one was clearly like, not accessing her femininity. It's not about just makeup and hair and frills. It's much deeper than that. It's about really taking the time to invest in yourself, your style, your appearance, your persona, allowing those things to flourish. It doesn't have to be a carbon cut copy of every other woman. But yeah, femininity for me, it's like, wow, I'm getting treated better everywhere I go. Wow, more people are noticing me. And I'm disabled. Y'all see me in my little cripple mobile going about. Like, I need people to notice. I need people to pay attention and do things for me. And femininity is, it works. I have way more people offering to help me. And I'm able to see men's femininity more now too, because I'm in my feminine, so I'm able to recognize it more when I meet men. Before I didn't recognize it. I thought all men were like the same. I didn't really understand these polarities, this gender thing. But once I began to dip into and kind of embrace my femininity again, I am able to sniff it out in a man. So like, I'm able to see like, okay, this guy's more feminine than masculine. He's not going to do anything for me. And it could be something as simple as like, he sees me struggling to get a door open and he walks by, even though he knows who I am. A lot of women are in, when a woman steps up and goes and helps someone like that, she's in her masculine as well. And that's not a bad thing. People should help those who are in a more frail state than them, period. But when a man doesn't do it, like, it's more noticeable to me. Like, these little things, like, oh, he didn't get the door. Oh, he didn't, make kind of room for me. He didn't let me go first. Those little subtle things I didn't pick up on before, but now I notice them hella, and I appreciate it so much more when I deal with someone that is in their masculine, somebody who has a healthy masculine energy. Like, before I thought it was all bad. I was so brainwashed, but like, masculinity it's support, it's help. A man in his masculine is of greater service to society and women generally than a man who isn't. I can think of so many examples of this, but like men who are masculine will help those who are frail, help those who are less fortunate. They see a woman struggling and they think, no, that's wrong. It's a good thing. It's something you want. We don't want to breed this out of men. Like, they're stronger than us. We need them to be that way. Well, I mean, good luck with that, Polar Nights. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's like, obviously it does exist. And femininity is more than just makeup. It's more than just the clothes you're wearing. It's your energy more than anything else. But I do think that these things are tools that women have in our arsenal. The world's, we talk again about living in a patriarchy, which we do. No question about that. Like, what tools do we have in our disposal as women to get the best for ourselves? I mean, that's to me like what it's really about. Like, what do I have access to myself? Like, what can I do myself with what I have to get the results I want? So, I mean, I'm not saying that that's not possible. Obviously, it is. There are women who are, not outwardly feminine. You want to say, I don't know how to put it exactly, not done up or whatever, that have, strong relationships, good relationships with men. But, again, like, watch what he's doing. Watch what he's looking at when you're not looking. And think about it. Like, if, again, as the woman, you want to always be the prize. So how can you make it? How can the situation be that, even if you're not, outwardly feminine in that way, how is it that he still sees you as the prize? How is it that he knows that you can easily go out and replace him? Like, what do you got going on? I think that's really what it's about. It's about knowing, our strengths, our assets, and being in that kind of circumstance where we are at our best. And again, like, if you look at like the highest classes in society, you look at like, I don't know, royal events, for example. These women aren't charted up. They're feminine, but the makeup they're wearing is minimal. The jewelry they're wearing is minimal. And it's not really, they're not looking flashy because they don't need to, right? They don't need to be that visually stimulating. However, they do look their best. So I think it is important, like, look your best. Whether that be like how you groom yourself, whatever. It's like you don't have to necessarily do all these things, but because again, your energy is the most important aspect of you. But like, again, like, pay attention to what's going on. Like, a lot of men have these lies they tell women. They're like, I want a natural woman. I want a woman that's not high maintenance. And it's like, no, you just can't afford a woman that's high maintenance. So you want a woman that, is not able to replace you so quickly because she's not turning heads every time she goes out. So, I mean, like, just, I would say keep that in mind. One time I did go Dutch and it made me feel really mad because it does go against our nature and their nature. Yeah, it's like, why was I even here? Why did I even bother getting up and leave? Like, why would you leave your house to go Dutch? I can cook myself a meal. I can order DoorDash or whatever, like, or I can go to the grocery store and get some, why as a woman are you getting out of bed, putting on, your clothes, putting on your makeup, looking presentable, doing your hair, all of the other, upkeep that you do throughout the, weeks and months to make yourself look, as good as you want to look. Why do that, if somebody's just gonna like not value it? 'Cause that's what it feels like. It's like you don't value my time, you don't value me. And that's it. It's like, if a guy, you're out on a date and he asks you that, it's like, really? It's like, you don't like me, do you? And that's how it feels. It's like, you don't like me. And also the other thing about it too, and when I was talking to my friend about this, because she mentioned doing this on a date, the other thing about it is that leaves him with more money to take other women out, doesn't it? He saved money on his date with you. So now he has money to go on another date. No. And that's the other thing, like people do not value, this goes beyond just the sexes, okay? Because it's not just about men and women here. People do not value that which they don't invest in. They really don't. If they have not invested time in you, money in you, effort in you, then they don't value you. And it does, leaving that kind of date, it just, it feels like you feel devalued. You feel like, okay, well, this person doesn't like me. I mean, yeah, in the video that I did, I suggested women go up to some random guy and ask him to pay for them, embarrassing the man. I was like, yeah, go up to a random man and say, excuse me, sir, I'm on this date and he has not brought money to pay for me, and I do not have my wallet, and I'm wondering if you can help me. Give him your number so that he can pay you back. Wink, wink. Or is that so that you can pay him back? Wink, wink. I suggested that. But like, obviously most women aren't going to be comfortable doing that. I understand that. Like, and at my age, I wouldn't do that, either. I don't, it was meant to be funny. I do have a sense of humor. I know people don't think that, but I do have, I'm a kind of a goofball. So, I said that to be funny, but I think there is some validity in embarrassing the man. But regardless, I mean, even if you don't do that, understanding that when that happens, you're not going to see him again. Don't deal with him again. Because you don't need, maybe he really did like you. That's the thing. Like, if a man really does like a woman and then he asks her to go Dutch, she's not going to want to deal with him again. And so he's shooting himself in the foot. Like, if there are any men watching, I don't know at this point, but like, really think about that. Like, you ask a beautiful woman who you're attracted to, who you want to get to know better, to go Dutch. The likelihood that she's going to want to deal with you again, unless she's a total pick-me, is very low. She's going to definitely not see you as someone worth dating. So, I mean, this is to, a caution to men as well. Like, but even so, I don't think you should do that to a woman just because maybe you don't feel it. Maybe you're like, there's not really any chemistry here. I'm not really attracted to her. Okay, that's fine. her time is still valuable and you can still afford to buy her a meal. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's pathetic. It really is pathetic, you know. And if it's a hardship to you, you don't need to be dating. You need to be self-focused then, you know. You don't need to be looking for a woman because women are expensive. And if you knock one up, how expensive is that going to be? If it's a pain for you to buy a woman a meal, how painful is it going to be for you to pay child support? It's going to be very painful. It's going to be very painful, and you're going to feel very unhappy with it. So, you know, just think of that. Yeah, I think it's just also about taking up space as well. 'Cause that's the thing of it, like having the audacity to, as a woman, dominate. Because femininity dominates in a very gentle way, and it's by taking up that visual space. And the more that we kind of stand out in that way, the more we're able to kind of assert ourselves. The more noticed we are, the more people actually see us. You know, the I mean, it's possible, but I mean, don't commit yourself to anything, you know, until you kind of experiment. I think that's really, you know, go experiment, try different things, you know, see what works for you. You know, I found for me, because let's be honest here, I don't do the makeup for men. I don't get up in the morning because a lot of the times I don't leave the house, or if I do, it's around the block, you know. I'm not interfacing with people every day, but every morning I get up and I do my makeup, I do my hair, I put myself together. That is for me. It's not for anyone else. It's time that I spend on myself with myself. And I think a lot of people don't really recognize that as well. And a lot of feminists too, who are stuck in that like femininity is evil perspective, they're not getting that either. They think that it's for men, it's to please men. And honestly, like, no, it's about, to me, taking up space. To me, it's about that time and that investment and like creating myself every day. It's that time where I kind of am just, the only thing I'm focused on is me. Beginning of the day, I feed the cat, I make my coffee, and then there's this time of creation where I think, okay, well, how do I want to look today? What's the weather like? What am I going to be doing? What kind of what colors do I what makeup do I have that I want to play with today? Like, what am I going for? Who do I want to be? Or what part of myself do I want to act? You know, kind of accentuate. Like, do I want to be theatrical today? Do I want to be more tame? What, you know, what colors do I want to play with today? It's for me. It's not really for anyone else. And that time that I've spent with myself over the past couple of years, because I started wearing makeup again last year after many years of not. I have to say, like, it really did something in my mind to actually take that time to spend with myself and to think this way. Like, it really, I don't know, maybe I'm delusional, but it increased my confidence exponentially because I see myself, and I see myself in the mirror and I'm like, you know, where I'm like, damn, I look good. Like, that's a fine looking woman. That's a beautiful woman. Like, I already was beautiful, And then I just took it to the next level. I made it like so obvious. So I don't know. For me, it's kind of, it's done that, something about my confidence as well. And my willingness to take up more space too. Like before, I was more timid. When I wasn't practicing femininity, like I thought that that was going to empower me, but I really became far more timid. I became far less likely to, assert myself. And, it's kind of funny because reading the book, Dykes Loving Dykes, which I kind of covered extensively on this channel, which does have like, it's a fascinating book for sure. And the critiques about femininity are very interesting, especially like in relation to the women's, movement and lesbian community. It's true. Femininity dominates. It does. Femininity allows women to take up more space. But I don't think that's a problem with femininity. I guess before I felt kind of a lot of shame, like, oh, I have this feminine or femme privilege, and that's a bad thing. And I'm, oppressing other women. I'm oppressing butch women by having this. And then I realized I'm not oppressing anyone. That's ridiculous. If other women are unwilling to take up space, it's not my problem. If other women have a problem with me taking up space, again, that's not my problem either, is it? It's theirs. Other people's problems are not mine. I don't need to take on other people's problems. I have enough of my own. We all have enough problems of our own that we don't need to be in this constant self-sacrificial perspective. And that's where I was, in this kind of like masochistic self-denial that I thought was, being good person, and it isn't. Yes, I did get that from Shira. Or she had another one, like if a guy takes you shopping and he's like, oh, that's too expensive, or he doesn't want to get you something. What she said, just ask really loudly, is this too expensive? Can you afford this? Or there was another one she had about, a lot of the times the way men groom women, they'll groom you to have low expectations from the beginning by, saying things like, I was I had an ex take advantage of me financially. I was with a gold digger. And, what a man's really saying with that is that he doesn't want to spend money on you. He's not fixing to. He's not, interested in any way proving himself to you as a provider. So she suggests that what we do in that circumstance is to ask him if, to, be really shocked and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Have you financially recovered? Just like play into it and embarrass him, because that's a humiliating thing to say to a man. And he should be humiliated to say something like that to a woman. But yeah, I remember, Nero, knock it off. I don't care about your doings. I don't care about what you're saying. You are not going outside. Stop asking. Get your little butt over here right now. I'm playing with you. You are not going outside. Do you hear me? That's right. Excuse me, y'all. Hey, where my kitty at? Who kitty ain't going outside? My kitty ain't going outside. Whose little kitty bear ain't going outside? My little kitty bear, the one that's not going outside today. That's right, Mr. Kitty. You staying inside, my kitty. That's right. You're such a good kitty, but you staying inside. That's right. Yeah, I mean, don't, they will test, that's the thing. Like, women complaining about men, trying to sleep with you on the first date. Of course, they're going to try shit. You just have to, like, Know how to hold your own and don't let them devalue you. Don't let them play you like that, because that's all it is. That kind of crap, like, oh, I was financially, I had a woman that financially took advantage of me. I was dating a gold digger. It's like, come on. Like, if you haven't healed yet, then you don't need to be on a date, sir. Oh my God, have you financially recovered? I'll just get the cheapest thing on the menu. Like, put him in that freaking place. Like, what kind of man says that crap to a woman that he asked out on a date? Like, he has the audacity to take you out on a date and then be like, yeah, I'm not really interested in actually dating you. Like, okay. Well, thank you for letting me know. And I'll make you know that I'm not interested in dating you either. And I'll make sure that you, feel embarrassed so you don't try this nonsense with another woman. Like, it's the same thing with like asking for sex on the first date, or expecting it. Like, embarrass them. Like, oh, you're asking for sex on the first date. Okay, well, I can you pay my bills? You want to pay my rent? Since we're asking for ridiculous things on a first date, come on. Come on. It's a first date trying to get in the woman's pants. And you know what? It's a good thing though if he's trying because it means he's attracted to you, right? So don't discount that. It's good. You can work with that. You just don't give into it. And you sure as hell don't devalue yourself, like the woman in my comment section, and just decide that because some man tried to get in your pants on a first date and was like rude to you, that you're not going to, ever have a man pay for you again, just in case that kind of thing comes up because you don't know how to handle it. That's all it is. Like, you're in public. I don't understand this. Like, you're not in danger. You're in public. What's he gonna do? If you really do feel threatened, then you go to the staff of the establishment you're in and tell them. If it's really that kind of situation where you're out on a date with a man, he's bought you a meal, and you actually feel like he might kidnap you, attack you, and rape you, I'm going to have to take this video off the channel. So y'all who are watching right now are very lucky because what I'm saying here is not advertiser friendly. But seriously, if that's the circumstance that you are in, excuse yourself to go to the restroom and go tell the staff that you feel threatened by your date. And they will have him escorted out. I'm serious. If you really are under that threat, fear, if that's really it, then, do that. But honestly, if you're going on a first date with a man, people should know. You should tell someone, that you're going out on a date, where you're going to be, how long you expect to be gone. Anyway, this is just sensible behavior. We are at risk as females, yes, but there's precautions we can take. And if you really do feel threatened, then get someone else involved, especially because you're meeting up in a public place. I don't understand why this means that women should not have any standards of, expecting men to pay for their meals. It's that's the other thing too. I don't understand also I don't know. I'm not going to go off on that tangent again. I've said it a million times. Yeah, Shira is she's a legend. I don't know. I love her. What would you say to a man that says perverted comments while on the first date? I mean, I don't know. It would depend on the perverted comment. Like, how perverted are we talking here? What do you mean by perverted? Because perverted to me sounds like really unnatural. Like, or are we just saying like sexual comments? I mean, if a guy's like making innuendos, like we're gonna go to bed together, I'd be like, oh, honey, it's gonna take a lot more than one dinner to get me into the sack. Or if, again, like bring up the bills thing and you be like, oh, yeah, I'd love to go to bed with you. How do you feel about paying my bills? How do you feel about, oh, I've got this debt, or, oh, yeah, of course, I'd love to sleep with you on the first date. How do you feel about, getting me this, that, or the other? Like, I don't know. What do you want? Like, I would just be ridiculous. Ask for something ridiculous. Sure, I'll go to bed with you on the first date. Will you pay my rent the next 2 months on the first date? You gonna buy me a new car? You gonna pay for my schooling this year? I really want to go on this trip. You gonna pay for that? Like, I mean, come on. Like, I think I just ask for something ridiculous. Ask for something that a woman has no business asking a man who's only been on one date with. Like, sure. Make fun. Like be joke. Make a joke about it. That's what I said. Yeah, I would say. I know. Yeah, I had a man recently tell me he wanted to go to bed with me. Like, we weren't even on a date, and I was just like, "Don't be silly. You haven't even taken me out yet." You know. I know. I said, "You're so silly. You haven't even taken me out yet." Like just put him back in his place. Make him realize that you're not going to do that unless he does more. I told you you are not going outside. Who the hell do you think you're talking to that way? You don't scratch at the door. You don't ask to go outside. You ain't going outside. What did I say? Yeah, you come back here skulking because you know you ain't supposed to be acting like that. Are you mad when it ain't about us? You mad when it ain't about you? Is that right? No. You ain't going outside, you little muffin. Yeah, I love you too, but you ain't going outside. You can kiss on me, you can rub your little head on me, but you ain't going outside. So stop it. I should probably get going, y'all, because he's starting to get a little dramatic, more so than usual. Let me wrap up these comments. Sexual comments. Yeah, I would just be like, I mean, I don't know if it's a sexual comment, like, I don't know, like something about your body, Yeah, I just, I would be playful with it. It's not a bad, men are going to say sexual comments. It's a good thing if they're thinking sexually while they're on a date with you. You know what I mean? Like, because you want them to want to sleep with you. You know what I mean? That you want them to want to sleep with you. That don't mean you give in. Not until they jump through whatever hoops you have for them. But it's. I would say be playful with it, but be clear that oh, you're so funny. Why don't you pay? Yeah, like I like color nights. Sure. Will you pay my taxes? Yeah, I'd love to sleep with you. Are you know what? You gonna do this for me? 'Cause, yeah, one dinner just isn't enough to get into these panties. I don't really know you yet. Are you the kind of man that's gonna, pay my taxes? Yeah, whatever your thing is, whatever ridiculous, outrageous thing is. I mean, really, whatever thing is, because it's ridiculous for a man to expect sex on the first date. I mean, they're going to ask, they're going to try, and it's not a bad thing because it means he wants to sleep with you. So if he wants you, that's not a bad thing. But honestly, like, you want him to be in the position of wanting, and he wants to be in that position as well. You have to lure them in with your grace, because men know their dogs. Okay, that's the thing. They know that their desires are vile. They know that they're nasty. They know that what they want is nasty. They know that they're vile. They know this stuff. They know their nature, and this is why they respect women who don't give into it. Okay, so you want to be playful with it. Let him know that you know it too. Like, I know you're a dirty, nasty dog. Okay, and dangle it. It's a dance. You have to kind of, again, you have to dance with it, but again, make it clear that there is a boundary there, and you will open up in your own time when he has proven himself. So it's a treat you dangle, but he has to do the tricks to get the treat. Okay, so like, don't be off put if he's making those kind of comments. If you're not into him, I can understand why that's maybe gross to you. But like, if you're dating hypergamously, then again, this is part of the enchantment. So again, like, think femininity, dark feminine. Think you're drawing him into you. So like, he wants that clearly. It's what you have to offer. But again, you kind of make it clear that you're disgusted by him slightly, but that he does have the potential to get it. I mean, it's you have to dance with the energy. You also have to accept their nature. If you're dating a man, you have to accept that they're disgusting and that they're going to want it. They want to do the dirty. They want to do it all the time. And you have to make it clear that, like, you're aware of what you have. It's a power dance, and you have to, again, have your eyes set on the bigger things, like big picture. If he's looking at you, you're looking at the heavens. He's dreaming about getting you into bed, and you're dreaming about your future, what he's going to do for you. Always keep your eyes on that. Like, you want to get this? Well, what are you going to do for me? Because I have these lofty dreams. Make it clear that he has to work. And if he's not into that, he will make himself disappear. He'll excuse himself. But there are men that really enjoy that chase, and most of the time, especially if you're talking about masculine, they want to want you more than they want to really conquer you. It's like the thrill. Okay, so if you're kind of dangling it but not giving in, it's more exciting, ultimately. So anyway, like I said, I don't know about this video. I did say some things and some words that YouTube doesn't really like. YouTube wants us to use innuendos instead of real language. So I may not have this video up, but I want to thank everyone who is here. Nero as well, wishes you all the best wherever you are. If you're in the US, I know, you're probably tired of this heat. I did see that it will start to go down tomorrow. So, let's all just hope for that. Hope that we get some reprieve from this summer haze. And yeah, I hope that the things I talked about today and in regards to submission will be helpful to you. Well, Polar Nights, why don't I keep the video up for a little while and then like private it? I think I'll do that. I'll leave it up for like the night. So if you want to watch it on Cash App and catch the other bits, I think they might be illuminating to you. So I'll do that. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you another time. Bye.